Hello, I'm Jonathan Hines, Managing Director of Architype, an architectural practice specialising in low energy design based in Edinburgh. I'm going to talk to you about the energy carbon challenge we are facing and propose a solution that will help Scotland meet its ambitious climate targets. So first of all, the energy carbon challenge. We all spend most of our time in buildings. To make buildings comfortable, we need to heat, light and ventilate them. That takes energy, and this in turn emits carbon. In fact, buildings are responsible for around 40% of the total carbon emitted nationally. So the challenge is how to reduce this. So what's the answer? Well, the easy answer would be to rely on the electricity grid being decarbonised and to swap from fossil fuels such as gas for heating to electricity using efficient technology such as heat pumps. However, changing to electric heating would cause a huge increase in the demand for electricity, at the same time as electric vehicles are also creating a massive increase. Scotland will never be able to square this circle and balance the demand and supply for renewable energy unless it significantly reduces consumption of energy in our buildings. Building standards, that is the rules that have to be followed when you build or refurbish a building, are higher in Scotland than those in England. However, they do not come anywhere near the level required to achieve Scotland's ambitious climate targets. There are two problems with them. Firstly, the energy standards within them are simply too lax. And secondly, in reality, buildings perform much worse than those standards, sometimes as much as 3 to 5 times worse. Now, the simplest thing that could be done would be to tighten up standards and enforce them more robustly. Not just a little bit, we need a significant shift. Is this possible? Well, the good news is that we already know how to do this, and it does not require complicated new technology, nor does it need to wait for the invention of some new wonder insulation material or a flashy gizmo. We simply need to adopt the international standard called Passivhaus. Passivhaus is backed by a robust analysis system and is enforced by a rigorous certification process. It could be adopted in Scotland tomorrow and incorporated into building standards. This would create a paradigm shift in our nation's journey towards a zero carbon future. Would this really work? Well, Passivhaus has been around for more than 30 years across Europe, and for the last 15 years, Architype has been designing buildings in the UK to the Passivhaus standard. Monitoring has proved that these buildings save around 90%, yes, 90% of the energy required for heating, and around 70% of the overall total energy for heating, lighting and all other uses. Passivhaus requires following some very simple rules of good design. Firstly, improving the building fabric with increased insulation, triple glazed windows and airtight construction. Secondly, looking at the form and orientation of the building to maximise useful warmth from the sun while shading out sun that would cause overheating. Having improved the building itself, you can then keep the heating and ventilation systems really simple and efficient. And then the third-party certification ensures that construction is to the same high standard as the design. Someone once said to me, "This sounds like such common sense, why isn't it more common?" That's a very good question. We could make it common across Scotland by making it mandatory in building standards for all new and refurbished buildings. Unless this is made mandatory, the required improvements will simply not happen. We don't have time to leave it to chance or rely on the willingness of clients, architects and contractors to do it. A good example of how to ensure improvements can be seen in the action of the Scottish Futures Trust. They have set an energy target for all new schools in Scotland, which local councils have to achieve every year for 25 years in order to receive capital funding from Scottish Government. This is creating a transformation across Scotland. Every local council, every architect, every engineer and every contractor is now looking for the best way to deliver to that energy standard. And at Architype, we're now delivering numerous Passivhaus schools across Scotland. And as you can see from the examples of Passivhaus schools on the screen, Passivhaus doesn't only radically reduce energy and carbon, it creates beautiful, light and airy buildings which are comfortable and healthy with really good air quality, which will enhance concentration, teaching and learning. We don't need to wait. We can do this now.